Okay, this video is a little bit of the content that we learned in class today. Quarter two, first new concept of quarter two is looking at information and being able to describe it as domain left to right using the X values from the graph data and range bottom to top using the Y data from that graph. So you can see from this, if I'm looking at domain measured left to right, the furthest left that this graph goes is 1 on the x-axis. And as I go left to right, the furthest right number I go is 8. And since they have no circles, no open circles, which we'll look at here in a second, I draw square brackets on here. That's why this has square shapes and not rounded. When I do not the domain, which is left to right, when I do the range, which is bottom to top, I look at where the bottommost part of that graph goes all the way up to the top part of that graph where that data goes. So you can see it's going from 2 up to 7 on the y-axis. I use the y-axis numbers. So again, that's where I'm getting those numbers. And then we'll take a look at the shape of the brackets, square brackets, if the data is solid, rounded brackets, if it's open data. And what I mean by that is this one right here. This one is an open data point. That means I'm going to use a rounded bracket, open. So here I go. If I do domain, domain is measured from left to right using the X numbers, the X's, the X's. So if I look from left to right, from this is going from -3 all the way to an imaginary boundary right here to 9. But since this is open right here, I use a rounded bracket, rounded. So here I go. This domain would be square bracket from -3, this is square, comma, to 9 on that x-axis, but I do this one rounded because that data point is solid. If this data point would have been filled in, would have been not open, I would have done a square bracket. But since it was open, I do a rounded bracket. All right. Let's do range. Let's clean this up a little bit because these boundary lines sometimes cause some confusion. So when I look at range, I don't look at the X numbers anymore. When I look at range, I use the Y numbers. Range is from bottom up to top. Bottom to top. That using the Y numbers, the Y's. So if I look, the bottom part of this graph starts at -1 and goes all the way up here to 8. That's where I'm getting that. And again, I have an open bracket here. So that open bracket makes that a little bit tougher because I'm going to have to break that into sections. So if I do this one, this is going from -1 up to this boundary right here, 4. And I would write that as from -1 square up to 4 rounded. This is square. This is rounded. If I could like that. So -1 to 4 rounded. And then from rounded 4 up to 8 square. And that's because of this open circle right here. If this was not open, if this would have been filled in, then I would have not had a little break. I would have went straight from -1 all the way up to 8 square if I had no open section there when I'm going from bottom to top. Since I do have an open section, that made that rounded section. I have to break that into 2 sections. So a little tougher there on range on this one. Let's do another one. If I was to give you this graph right here, which is an open circle right here, we'll do a line down to here and then a line all the way up to here. So if I look, this is the open circle on this one. This is the open circle. So if I'm doing from left to right, this is going from -5, but I don't do that square, would be -5 rounded because that is an open circle, so rounded, up to 5 on the x-axis, square. And I got that from this number all the way over here to this number right there. That's where I got that -5 to 5. If I do the range is from bottom to top. So range would go from square 3 up to that boundary there where I got 6. So I would put 6 rounded, and then I got to do another one, 6, and go up to where it stops up there, up at 9. Square. Know that you got to really draw it so I could see rounded or square. Know that, of course, again, if this was filled in right here, then that would have been square -5 to 5 square. Then that would have been, for my range, that would have been from -3 square. I'm sorry, not -3. That would have been from +3 square straight up to 9 square without a break in it. But I do have a break in it, so that means that makes this rounded, -5 to 5, and then range from square 3 up to rounded 6, and then from rounded 6 up to square 9. Again, we will practice these, I promise. Hope this helps. Good luck.